Hi, everyone. Welcome. I'm Rachel Siegel, the Director of Jewish Women's Leadership Programs at Illuminate. Welcome to our Crown Jewel Conversation Series. Illuminate empowers Jewish feminist women leaders and philanthropists, advancing gender equity and social justice. We have created the Collective, our signature leadership advancement program to train, support, elevate, and connect Jewish women's leadership globally to achieve the social change that we seek. Illuminate invests in Jewish entrepreneurial women executives and leaders who are devoting their lives to tackling society's most pressing issues in the United States, Israel, and around the globe. Each year, we select 10 women to be in the Collective's cohort-based leadership advancement program. Our global network is now 60 women strong. Our conversation today features one of the incredible collective members in our network. Kimberly Novod is the founder and executive director of Saul's Light, where she has collaborated with hospitals, service providers, and grassroots organizations to advocate for family-centered care, equitable healthcare policies, and directly serving families throughout Louisiana since 2015. Kimberly worked for a decade as a public school teacher prior to founding Saul's Light, following her personal experience with maternal health, prematurity, and infant loss. Kimberly has received numerous awards, including the Fearless Fund and MasterCard, and was appointed to Governor John Bell Edwards' Healthy Moms, Healthy Babies Advisory Council. She is a graduate of Xavier University of Louisiana and received a master's degree from Troy University. Please write any questions you have in the chat, and we will do our best to incorporate them if time allows. To begin the conversation, I'm pleased to introduce Illuminate's president, Stephanie Carey.
Thank you so much. I am always honored to be in these conversations and, of course, to come to our Crown Jewel conversations because it's so wonderful to learn about all the work that the leaders are doing. But as I said to you, Kimberly, I feel especially grateful to be in this conversation with you today simply because I work in the space of end of life. And so to be engaged in this conversation is a privilege for sure. So let's begin with your personal journey. It's a special one, and how Saul's Light literally birthed out of your personal experience. Talk about that a little bit.
So thank you so much for having me. I'm really glad to be here to be talking about this. I think we're talking a lot nationally about maternal infant health right now, and so I think this is the right time for this conversation. So my journey as the founder and executive director of Saul's Light began many years ago, about 11 years ago. So it'll be coming up in June, 11 years that my son was born prematurely, and he passed away as a result of being born prematurely. So he experienced complications that typically preterm babies experience, and it was life limiting. That journey was very eye-opening for me in that it completely changed my life in more ways than one. I think every person is changed when they become a parent, but I think that our change that my partner and I that we experienced was one of joy initially when we found out we were expecting, when my son was born, of course, and we were very hopeful. But it was also absolutely devastating, one of the lowest lows of our life to lose our first child. And so to have that roller coaster, right, of experience, like extreme joy, extreme devastation. Um, I knew that my life would never be the same. And I didn't know how to channel that initially. So I tell everybody who listen, I fell into the depths of grief. And I realized that I couldn't stay there after having many conversations, with my partner, with my rabbi, ultimately with a therapist, realized that I needed to find a way to channel that grief and the love and, the devastation, all those feelings, like, what can I do with it? Right. So I settled on a project. I'm going to start this organization in memory of my son. It's going to have his name, and I'm going to just bring a little bit of light to people's lives, right? Because life is such a symbolic, thing that we have in our lives, in our belief system. And I thought, well, this is something that I can do to remember him, a way to sort of reclaim what I thought parenting would be like. I thought, well, if I can't parent him in the, physical, natural way, this will be a different way, right? A spiritual parenting, if you will.
Yes.
And so we started just trying to bring comfort to families. We looked back on our experience, recognized what was missing, what could have been better. We talked to a lot of people who were there, as NICU parents do. They share their experiences and realize that, nobody is really prepared for a NICU experience. It's always surprising. You're surprised that you're there. You don't want to be there. You don't know how long you're going to be there. You don't know how bad it's going to get, right? So initially we thought, let's bring a little light. Let's do some care packages. Let's do some fundraising for the hospitals. But that journey led me to become more knowledgeable about the way that prematurity impacted my community. So I, for one, thought, this is an anomaly. I must be like the most unluckiest person in the world that this has happened to me. But the more I learned about maternal child health, about preterm birth and infant mortality in my community, I realized that it was not a one-time thing. In fact, it was a thing that was happening every single day in my community. And I was just one, and my son was just one of the babies that this happened to. And I was one of the women that it happened to. And it was a thing that gave me righteous anger. I knew that one, they have to change. Um, and I realized that somebody needed to do something about it. And it was going to be me, right? So I essentially answered that, proverbial call of
Yeah.
like, okay, what to do next. So I leaned on that experience to think about, yes, I have to do something different. I have to make a change. I can't let, what happened to me and what happened to my son, it just can't be the end of our story. And and I can't let other people experience the same thing and just, just turn away from it, right? We have a problem and I'm the person to bring a solution for it.
The universe, right? The universe was looking to you to be that guiding light. Well, first of all, what an incredible way you are honoring your son each and every day, for sure. And sadly, your story is not unique, as you said. So talk a little bit, shed, if you will, a little bit of light on this issue of infant mortality and maternal health here in the US. I think, I remember when I was on the visionary circle with others as we were hearing about the work that you did. And I remember learning so much about what was happening here in the States that I was not aware of. So please, if you could share that, I think that would be really helpful.
It's really unfortunate because we live in a country where, we spend the most on healthcare and we have the worst outcomes of developing, of not developing, sorry, developed country
Yep.
with countries, what we call first world, if you will, we have terrible maternal mortality rates, terrible infant mortality rates, and the disparities between Black women and Black babies versus white women and white babies is just, I mean, it's unreal, you know. So, for example, Black maternal mortality here in this country is 3 times the rate of white women. So that means that Black women are dying at 3 times the rate of white women, which is completely unacceptable.
Yep.
Here in this country, we have a preterm birth rate of 10%. But where I live in Louisiana, it's 13%.
Mm.
And in some parishes, um, it's as high as 18%.
Mhm.
Again, Black babies they're being birthed preterm, um, twice as likely, you know, twice as likely to be born preterm versus white infants. And preterm birth is one of the biggest causes of infant mortality. So when you see, you know, children that are dying under the age of 1, quite a lot of them are going to be preterm. And so these things that are happening in our country, they haven't changed in 10 years. That's one thing, right? Um, and we aren't really learning the lessons that we need to learn. We're not investing in things that would change maternal mortality and infant mortality, that would sort of advance equity and you know, reduce disparities. So, you know, all those sort of maternal child health policies, like, you know, paid leave, for example, would be something that would change that. But I think it's just really sad to see that, you know, despite being a very wealthy country, despite being a country of, you know, very intelligent individuals that are right leading healthcare, doctors and surgeons and nurses and things like that, we still have, you know, maternal and infant mortality rates of a developing country. It's really unacceptable. And it's totally unacceptable for us to have that sort of divide between the races.
Remarkable. I mean, it's remarkable in today's world, and yet here we are. So talk a little bit about how Saul's Light, the work of Saul's Light, addresses this issue that, you know, we're hearing about, which is just staggering.
So what we're doing is thinking about maternal health and infant health, first of all, together. We're not separating the two, right? I think there are a lot of you know, maternal initiatives or infant initiatives, and one of the things that we look at is that the relationship between a baby and its parent or baby and its mother is so closely connected that you can learn about either from the other, right? So our organization is concentrating on taking care of NICU babies, but through working with and supporting their families. Because we understand that if families are supported in their parenting journey while in NICU, then their baby is going to have a better outcome. So for us, what that looks like is looking at that dyad, the mother-child dyad, and saying, okay, when someone enters into the neonatal intensive care unit, what needs to happen next so that they both, mother and child, walk out of this journey alive and healthy and whole mentally and emotionally. So for us, that's direct services. We assist families with financial burdens that they experience when they're having this medical crisis. The parents that we work with are postpartum, so a lot of them are out of work at the moment. They've had traumatic experiences, traumatic births, C-sections, things like that. And so they may be out of work for a while, right? So they experience great financial burden. Those funds can be used for transportation, they can be used for lodging. If, for example, a baby is hospitalized in a higher level NICU in New Orleans, but maybe their family lives out in rural Louisiana. So that happens quite a lot. There are two high level NICUs in New Orleans for the whole state. And so we see a lot of families that are separated, parents that are separated from their babies. And so that, that brings me to the next issue is creating greater access for mental health services. It's such a traumatic journey to be separated from your baby, to not be able to hold your baby, to be able to actively parent your baby, right? The things that healthy parents take for granted, changing a diaper, kissing your baby, smelling your baby. These are the things that NICU parents are missing out on. It takes a toll on their mental and emotional health, and it takes a toll on the physical health of their baby. And so our goal in the end is to say, how do we eliminate barriers that prevent parents from being present at their baby's bedside and involved in their care? And so that's where our direct services are, coming in to support families and getting there and being present, holding your baby, doing skin to skin, talking to your baby, reading to your baby, providing breast milk to your baby. This is our way of advancing health equity and eliminating disparities once they've already occurred. It's how do we have the next best outcome, after a family has experienced birth trauma.
And you said it, it's birth trauma. It is, it's hard for those of us who have not been through that experience to imagine going through perhaps an incredibly difficult delivery and ending up in this space with the shock of where you are and having to navigate so many different paths.
Mhm.
So the support that you're providing is truly immeasurable, I'm sure, for so many. I want you to talk about your definition of reproductive freedom, because I think it's much broader than what most people use when they think of reproductive freedom. So I want you to elaborate in terms of not only what you use in terms of the term, but where that came from for you. How did you get there?
Yes, our work, I think falls, okay, so what I think about is like reproductive rights and justice being a spectrum. And
Mhm.
so the work of Saul's Light falls on that spectrum, right? We refer to it as reproductive justice. So this is reproductive rights, but with the intersection of social justice issues, right?
Right.
So for us, what this means is yes, women and birthing people are in control of their reproductive justice, but it also means that they get to decide whether or not they have children. And then this is the part where our work squarely falls, is that, should they decide to have children, that they have a reasonable expectation of parenting in a safe and healthy environment. And so that's everything from, having a full term healthy baby that lives beyond its first birthday. That's also living in a community that is safe from pollution and poor air quality, soil quality, water, things like that. It's also addressing poverty, which a lot of our work really is rooted in addressing poverty and inadequate health care. And it's making sure that we can sort of, limit the damage of what it means to be parenting in environments such as those.
Yeah, that's it is. It's so challenging, and that is a very broad way of looking at it. And I think that's very helpful. I imagine that families who go through these kinds of losses and, of course, these challenges, feel incredibly isolated. That's probably as traumatic as anything, not to have support around them. So how do you create community in this world? It's challenging, I would think. Are families open to it? What do you think?
Yeah, so I think this is a really beautiful question because it shows the strength of our community and our culture that we have here in New Orleans. We are known for mutual aid, right? Which means that people come together and take care of each other. And I think that our organization is a perfect marriage, if you will, of Jewish values and New Orleans culture. Uh, because
That's great. That's good.
we create community for families. And you know, the biggest way that we do this is honestly through our peer mentorship program. So this falls under our mental health services. Aside from one-on-one therapy and support groups, families have the opportunity to connect with people who have had similar experiences before them. So maybe, you know, 5 years ago or 10 years ago, someone had a baby that was born preterm or had a baby with a congenital heart defect. We match those parents with parents that are currently going through the journey. And so they don't provide medical advice, but what they do provide is a listening ear and encouragement to say to families, not that everything is going to be all right. We don't know if that's true. But what they do say is that you're going to get through this because I got through it, right? I'm living proof. I'm standing before you today to say that, you know, this is a temporary time in your life. It's a journey. This is not a destination. You can't stay here, you know, and this is how I protected my mental health. These are the things that worked for me. These are the resources out in the community that you can count on. And so what we've been able to do, you know, in that 10 years is to create trusting relationships within our communities. We've virtually eliminated barriers. People trust us. We are, you know, truly a community organization. We're by the community and for the community. And I'm really grateful that we've been able to take that same level of trust that the families that we serve have in us and parlay that into a relationship with hospitals and healthcare professionals as well, who also have you know, an incredible amount of trust for us. And so what that means for Soul's Light is that we wind up becoming a bridge between the community and the hospitals and healthcare professionals. And what it does is gives everyone that feeling of support and community, this feeling of collaboration and working together and understanding that we all need each other. None of us are perfect. We're all learning and growing. And most importantly, we all want the same things, right? Which are healthy babies, healthy moms, healthy families that, you know, get to leave this really high stakes environment and can get out in the community and thrive. And so I'm really, really glad that I've been able to do that. You know, it's for families. Our services are for family, but there is absolutely no doubt that our work is created and is pushed forward through the power of women and mothers in particular.
Well, we know that's powerful for sure, for sure. You know, as you're speaking, I'm thinking about when you went through this traumatic, difficult time. Was there any one person who spoke to you in a way where you felt they understood what you were going through in that moment? Because what you are now providing to people is is priceless, because we all know that it's hard for us to relate to people who are not going through what we're going through in this moment. And and I'm just curious, was there someone for you that really spoke to you in that moment?
You know, I think There are probably two pivotal times in my journey after my son passed away that really sort of helped me to be able to move forward. And the first was a very frank conversation that I had with my rabbi, Rabbi Burke, from Torah Synagogue. She's not there anymore, but
How beautiful.
and I was really, really, I think that my grief and sadness had progressed to the point of depression and was a cause for concern. And so I just remember, my rabbi saying to me, like, you have to choose to live in this
Mhm.
moment. There's only two ways, you can go. You can die or you can live, right? So I have to make this choice.
Mhm.
And that day I made the choice to live, and I've been making that choice every day since then, because I am very aware of my son's absence in my life. Um, it wasn't just his birthday and his death date. It's all of the holidays. It's all of the big things. I have a daughter, she's 7, so I think about like the first day of school or vacation or when she walks. So I'm acutely aware that I've missed all those things with my son, and I will
Mhm.
forever feel that loss, right? So choosing to live is a choice, absolutely. And I'm glad that we were able to have that conversation in that way, because it was so dire for me. Um, and I completely trusted her. I trusted the things that she was saying. So I knew then that I had to get help, right? And
Right.
my rabbi helped me find a therapist that she trusted, and I completely trusted her. So if she trusted the therapist, then I know that it was going to work for me. And then, I went on my own mental health journey.
Sure.
And then the second thing was going to a retreat for moms who had experienced the loss of a child in Canada. And that was completely out of my comfort zone. I didn't know anyone there, but I went there, and for the first time, I had the opportunity to see women who had experienced loss, very fresh, more recent than mine. But I saw moms who had lost their babies 5 years and 10 years, and I was able to visualize what life would look like, and to have an embodied example that life moves forward and that life will be beautiful again. I think those were the two things that really sort of, helped me to see that, there's a way I can integrate this loss into my life, and keep going for the betterment of not only myself, but also for others.
Well, you are incredibly inspiring, and I thank you for sharing that. We talked in last month's Crown Jewel conversation. Jamie Beck actually was the one who talked about vicarious trauma, and you just alluded to it, how it's hard not to take on this emotional pain of those you're serving, and yours is so real and personal.
Mhm.
I'm curious to know how you handle that. How do you separate? How do you take care of yourself and sustain this amazing work that you're doing with your incredible leadership? Please share. Yeah.
I think it requires me to be, absolutely self-aware. I have to be
That's
into
good. That's healthy. That's good.
right?
That's good.
Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I tell everybody this is what thousands of dollars and hours of therapy and Zoloft and yoga and journaling, and this is where it gets you, right?
That's it. All of it together. Here you
Yes,
are. Yes.
all of
Good.
the things together. But I think that you know what what I what I realized about myself is grief comes in waves. And one, I have to be aware of when it's coming. Um, my son's birthday, for example, his yard site, like those are going to be difficult days for me. So I'm ready for those. I lean into those. So that, just like a wave comes up and goes down, it can go down as well. And it doesn't stay and take over my life. I also recognize, as a person who is delivering support and services to people with very similar stories and circumstances as mine, I have to remember not to personalize their
Yeah.
experiences. So I can at times get very upset when I hear family stories. I cry, every time someone loses a baby, I cry, especially, the people that are working with Salzite and we've gotten to know them because it's such a loss. Um, but I think about why is that, right? So I have to walk myself through it. I'm crying for these people because I know what their life will be like. I know what their experience will be like. But I remind myself, like, this is not my child. This is not my loss. This is not my experience. I take time off when I have to. I have a spiritual practice. I have a mindfulness practice. These are all things that really helped me to separate, the lives of the families that we serve from my own. And I think that people who are delivering care in situations that are very close to theirs, I think if they're not careful, it can be all consuming. And so you just have to be, self-aware and mindful of those boundaries and create boundaries if you don't have.
Yeah, I was just going to say that word. It sounds to me like that's what you've done is you have created these boundaries because you are so self-aware and it took a lot of work for you to get there. And so you need to ensure that you maintain that for your well-being. So I thank you for sharing that. You touched on earlier the Judaism aspect and how the rabbi spoke to you about in this moment, you have to decide, are you going to live? Or are you going to, if you will, and I've heard this expression, go into the grave
Mhm.
with that you've lost. Talk about how Judaism has supported you in this life cycle moment, and how Judaism informs your work.
Mhm. So it absolutely does. I think for me to have that period of mourning after my son died, um, was, I mean, it was really life-saving for me. And when I think back on that period of time, I realized the incredible support that I felt, the tangible and intangible. And it just, really made me recognize that I was not alone in my grief, that there were people there to bear witness with me to my son's life and the loss and the inevitable the hole, in my life that it would have on me. Um, I think that having that period to sit Shiva for him was just a really, really necessary time to reflect and to grieve in a way that honored the loss, right? The tremendousness of the loss, and just all that entails to have people come to our house, to have people bring food to our house, to be able to have Korea, to the a sort of visual manifestation of the tornness, the brokenness that we felt, right? I think that I realized that a lot of people need rituals, mourning rituals, to get through a loss of this magnitude. Um, and many people don't. And that's why the time feels so chaotic to people who experience loss. And so I realized that, my experience helped me so much. I really felt that like all people need a community and all people need someone to walk with them through the journey of loss and bereavement. And that's how Saul's Light came about. I just thought like, this it's so great and so necessary. It can't just be for Jewish people, right? I'm glad that we have it and it was great, but like I know a lot of people that need this. I know people that need to mark the period of grief, the end of it, so that they can carry on, right? Or have someone that is checking to make sure that they've eaten, checking to make sure that, they've brought some words of comfort to them, right? And so Saul's Light is really an effort to bring that level of community and comfort to all families that experience not only loss, but the NICU as well, because when your baby's in NICU, you don't think about eating. You
Yeah.
don't think about taking care of yourself and your mental health. You just think about being there for your baby. But you have to. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of your baby, right? So this is our way, our organization is a way for saying like, we've been really we felt held by these values, and they mean so much to us that we now want to be able to hold space in your family in the same way. No matter your background, no matter your race, your religion, your age, or where you come from, we know what it's like to feel held.
It's so wonderful that, you were able to talk about the importance of Jewish ritual for your personal experience. I believe that it's a beautiful compass, if you will, in that moment, and people embrace it. And it does, from, as you said, the tearing of Kriya and observing Shiva and. So the fact that you were able to weave that into Saul's Light to support other families and create community. And we know in Jewish life, creating community is what we're all about. So, speaking of creating community, um, I want to talk about how your experience in the collective, which is part of your community, how it has inspired your leadership.
It really has, just to, I think, be in the company of other women leaders,
Yeah.
with similar moral and ethic compasses, I think has been really, really encouraging. And I've made friends from my cohort, like people that I talk to all the time. I ask for advice and they pour into me, in a way that I hadn't had before. People that just I vibe with, right?
So
We
great.
agree on all the things, like our the things that we hold dear, the things that we value, the way that we go about repairing the world, right? Those some of the greatest people I've met through this organization. And so I think too, having the focus on the gender lens allowed us to really shift our work from just thinking about the immediate impact of infant health, the immediate impact of NICU and bereavement, and what that does, to thinking about the link between mothers and babies. So working more in coalition with organizations in our community that focus on reproductive rights and that focus on maternal mortality, morbidity, things like that, different, advocacy points. I think that we've had like we've been re-energized. Our mission has been re-energized to think more broadly about the issues that we're trying to tackle, and to create solutions that benefit women, because when they benefit women, they will automatically benefit children and babies and families and the community. um, I think that I have also, been given a lot of food for thought, thinking about how to infuse my leadership with all aspects of my identity and what it means to trust myself as a leader, and just recognize that as a person who is of the community that I'm serving, that I am what my community needs. So I think that that confidence to say, like, yes, I'm not only the expert in my life, but I'm also the expert in these things that impact my community, and I'm the perfect person to develop a solution for it. So I think just having that encouragement, I would say love, from Illuminate and from the women in my cohort has been absolutely amazing.
Well, I see that Ruth Messenger's on the call today, so I'm sure those are beautiful words for her ears to hear, for sure. And I'm so happy that you feel that way. That is the purpose of what we've been trying to create. So talk a little bit, a question came in about how does your work affect your parenting of your daughter? And I would just like to add to that the balance that you have in parenting her and keeping Saul, in the space as well.
Yes. So this is something that I think about all the time, because I have a daughter who is born after loss, and I never want her to feel that she's living in the shadow of her brother, or that she'll never be enough. So we're open and honest with our daughter. She's aware that she has a brother. He was born and died before she was born. She recognizes that although he doesn't live in our house, we carry him in our heart. He's a part of our family, just like all the people before her. So, my mom, my grandmother, my, grandparents, our ancestors. Um, so we talk about that, how people can still be in our lives. We have pictures of my son, just like we have pictures of her. We talk about Saul with her in a way that is age appropriate and that she's comfortable with. So what that means is she usually leads the conversation, right? I think oftentimes people are so afraid of what kids are going to say or do next. And it's because we've built up um, all the other things that like we can imagine, right? All the ways we think this conversation is going to
Right.
go. But what
Sure.
I find with my daughter is that she'll ask a question about Saul and we answer and she moves on, you know?
Yeah.
And so I've read a lot about child development and child psychology. Also, I'm a former teacher. So I know that at every developmental stage, she's going to ask more and more questions until she understands it in her adult mind. So as she gets older. But I try to keep in mind how much I'm talking about Saul, or
Mhm.
how much I'm talking about work at home, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter that it's Saul's light or if I were a teacher.
Sure.
Just trying to have those boundaries between when I come home, who I am as a mother to her, and when I go to work, who I am as a leader of this organization. And with that being said, my daughter, she volunteers for Saul's Light. She has jobs
Oh, so
that she does.
sweet.
Yes, she loves to, put the stickers in the books for the little NICU libraries. That's her job. She has a little shirt and everything. Um, and so that she feels that she's making the world a better place, which is something else we try to instill in her. So
How
she loves
beautiful.
to be part of it. Yeah, she loves to be a part of it.
And the pride she probably feels on a few different levels, right?
Yes.
The work that she's doing and how it relates to your family. And I know kids, we can learn from them, right? Because very often it's all about, okay, give me the information and then where am I having dinner tonight? I just
Yes.
want to know. Tell me
Yeah.
where I'm having dinner. So Another question came in. You are doing, I quote, "You are doing incredible work in Louisiana. How are you or might you want to influence this work beyond New Orleans?"
Yes, and so we already are. We're doing quite a lot of work locally here. We've been called a hyper local organization. I don't take offense to that, because what that allows us to do is to be the experts on our community and to make change the way that we have. We've passed 3 laws here in our state,
Mhm.
creating greater access to donor human milk and creating access to, stillbirth funds to address the financial hardship of stillbirth. Uh, but I also recognize that there's a general need in our region, in the Deep South, and in our country to push this conversation forward. And so I thankfully have had the opportunity to present at conferences and speak at conferences and talk about what neonatal health equity looks like, to talk about what family-centered care looks like, what compassion and empathy looks like, and how that can influence the way healthcare providers interact with families. And so I'm always, available and happy to go and carry this mission forward and, consult on projects and talk about how hospitals can engage with the community in a way that's respectful and in a way that is meaningful. I see our organization growing here in our community. I don't see it going beyond that. I don't think that I can, be an expert in Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
uh, because I don't live there, So I think our secret sauce is here. It's locally, and we understand acutely what's going on with mamas and babies in our community. But yes, I am extremely grateful to be able to take that message forward, across this country and even international, to talk about inequities, disparities, and like how we improve that.
And to name it, and to name it, as we said initially, it's not talked about, and we need to talk about it, and the disparities are real, and it's so important. So one last question before I let you go. Talk about how people listening can support you, can support elevating this work. Um, just give us a few different ways we can do that.
The greatest thing that people can do to support Saul's Light's mission is to carry the name and the mission forward. So some sort of low stakes
Mm.
things that people can do is like to follow us on social media, to like and comment on a post, right? That costs nothing. We're in the middle of our annual fundraiser. It's Give NOLA Day. So it's a regional fundraising contest for local nonprofits. And so the greatest thing that people could do is to donate to our NICU Family Fund. Our NICU Family Fund allows us to support families in ways that are meaningful. And so what that looks like here in our community is sometimes NICU families struggle to keep their lights on. NICU families struggle to have gas in their car to make sure that they can get to the hospital to see their babies. They struggle to take their baby home in a car seat that is created for a tiny 4-pound baby. And we help them, get those car seats and things like safe sleep environments. Our organization is radical in that we provide cash assistance. So we trust that people know best how to take care of their families, and we don't judge them. So our Give NOLA Day fundraiser is the best way to harness the power of community and mutual aid and make sure that people feel taken care of. And then the next way that people can, help Saul's Light, but also help the people in your life is if you know someone who is going through the NICU or has lost a child, send them a text or make a call, see how they're doing, take them a cup of coffee or drop a casserole, on their doorstep, take their dog for a walk, right? I think the best way that all of us can support not just Saul's Light, but support the people in our lives that are experiencing hard times, is just to turn towards each other. I believe fully in collectivism and interdependence. And I think that the way we all get to heal and the way that we get to wellness is by taking care of each other and recognizing that, none of us are different. We all want the same things. We want to be safe. We want our children to be safe. We want to have adequate housing, adequate food, right? Adequate schools for our kids. And so it's just to take care of each other. So yes, please donate to our Give NOLA fundraiser. Take care of the people in your community, and follow us on social media, like, comment, and tell people about Saul's Light.
And as you said, to show up. That's what we do in community, right? We show up for one another.
Absolutely.
It's I'm being repetitive when I say this, but you are an incredible gift to not only your community, but to the Illuminate community for sure. We are looking forward to seeing you within the next couple of weeks here as we celebrate our annual luncheon. I know that Rachel will be coming back on shortly to talk about that. Oh, like I said, there she is. But what an honor it's been to sit in conversation with you, Kimberly. So I thank you so much for all that you do and for the light that you share with us. So thank you. Thank you.
Wow. Yes. As Stephanie said, thank you so much, Kimberly. It was such a pleasure to get to know you even more. And we really thank you for taking the time to share your story with us and your wisdom and really telling us more about the important work that you do and how we could get involved in this effort. We're so proud to support your leadership, and we think that you're such a rock star. So thank you. And thank you, Stephanie, for leading us through this conversation. We're putting links in the chat so that you can learn more about Saul's Light and how you can support Kimberly in the work that she's doing. And like Stephanie said, Kimberly will be in New York City, if that is where you reside, for our annual luncheon on May 13th. We hope that you will join us. Eva will put some links in the chat so that you can learn more and register to join us then. And then we hope that you will join our upcoming Crown Jewel Conversation series. Our next conversation will feature Dina Shalev, the Executive Director and Head of Advocacy at La Da'at, Choose Well, an organization that promotes reproductive rights and healthy sexuality in Israel. So we hope to see you there as well. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you very soon. Thank you.